Hey guys, how's it going? So, I just thought I'd make this video to talk about the Valorous season post-mortem. So the season recently ended, we're in the preseason right now, not a whole lot is going on at the moment. You can see I've played like a few games, I'm just in Master, you know, I'm a scrub I guess. And everything's reset, just nothing's really different, everyone's playing the same teams, etc. But I want to talk about what I thought about this season and what I think should maybe change going forward. So, it is no surprise that this was easily my least favorite season ever. And now before anyone immediately says, but people say that every season people say, this season is the worst one and the previous one was better. Well, I don't even really think that some of the previous ones were all that amazing and better, but I will say that this season brought a lot of problems to the table. So we had the usual, like, Lua, ML Lilias, you know, the constant picks that you always see, Angel of Light, etc. Like, they were still prevalent in this season, just like they are every single season since their release, right? But we had a whole host of other problems. I would say the rise of debuffs really showed its ugly head in this season. There was a crazy amount of Solitaria in the middle of the season, and even to the late end of the season. There was so much power in the early turn advantage, giving you the advantage to just flood debuffs on your opponent's side. We saw a point in the season where everyone was just spam picking Edward and stuff like that, which later became a bad pick near the end of the season because people were just spamming characters that beat Edward, like ML Landy and Aiden and stuff like that. We also saw at the end of the season how RNG the game became with ML Landy, and now, you know, you watch some games like Winter Wish in the World Cup and you see him just tear apart these Landy teams. He does such a good job, but he also knows how to use the Landy teams, and some of the games with her are just so RNG and they go all over the place that you never know what's going to happen. Sometimes you draft a perfect team against her and it all goes wrong. Sometimes you draft a decent team against her and you just automatically win because of how the RNG works, where she counters too much or she doesn't counter enough, etc. It's all over the place, right? And all in all, I think this season was easily my least favorite. Cleansers felt like crap, where you're just getting run over by debuffs. RNG was rampant with characters like ML Landy. And then near to the end of the season, it was just the constant Zio team spam of people first picking Zio or first picking Aiden into Zio or etc., right? So this was easily my least favorite season. And now, one thing that's really big about every RTA season is essentially once it gets solved, it gets boring. And what I mean by that is essentially when people find out what are the best teams, what are the best units, what characters should you be picking first, what characters should you be pre-banning, etc. That's when the game becomes really boring and stale. Because that's when everyone just has set in stone meta. They only pick these things, they only play these things, everyone's playing the same teams, everyone's copy-pasting their flowchart of what units to pick and when to pick what units into what, right? That's when the game gets really boring, and I think that this season's meta became really flowcharted and stale very fast at a few points. I think in the middle of the season there was some fun because people were still trying to figure things out, but especially near the end of the season, every game was revolving around ML Landy and Zio. Pretty much every game that I saw. Everyone who is an Emperor to Legend can probably attest to this, that almost every game they played essentially revolved around one of those two units. Now, assuming you pre-ban both of them, I guess not, but not many people really had that happening to them, and people were just spam picking the units all the time. So all in all, I was definitely not a fan of this season. Now, what are some things that I think would really improve it? Things that they could change? I think one of the biggest things is the frenzy system. I think this frenzy system was incredibly negative for the game. For anyone who doesn't really remember what it was essentially an accelerated frenzy where you lose max HP faster immediately in Frenzy 1, which is the first time we've seen that. And you lose a significant amount too, is it like 10% I think? So essentially health scalers, tanks, etc. are already being punished just from the very beginning of the match essentially. Some cleave teams would even get to Frenzy 1 before you get a turn, so you've already lost a bunch of HP. And, you know, I don't really want tank down teams and stuff to be super powerful, but that's not exactly what that frenzy was doing. It was just making it so the accelerated aggression was so much stronger and health scalers were so much weaker. Even some of the fan favorites like Dark Chorus that started cropping up and Lethe, they were just immediately losing health, which felt really bad value. So I would definitely like to see a change in that. I think also, this has always been tossed around in previous seasons, maybe they should do something like Soul Weavers get extra resistance, because right now the resistance stat, it's bad. It's really, really, really bad. You may have noticed that the only reliable cleanser against debuffs is essentially Mediator Cleric, and that's because he ignores debuffs. He just says, okay, I'm just going to cleanse that silence or stun or whatever, and then he immediately is able to S3 and cleanse the team. No other character can do that. We either need more characters like him, which is a little bit of a lame way to do it, or you make it so that maybe the FRES stat, you get more of it on pieces of gear. So maybe instead of 8% being the max roll, let's say just like 11 or 12%, just a crazy suggestion, but possible thing. Or you make it so that the Frenzy gives you like 50 base FRES if you're a Soul Weaver. I don't know, it's just something like that. Because at the moment, the best cleanser is not even a Soul Weaver, it's a Warrior, which is like, well, what the hell? Now, characters like Summertime Lilica, what was her name? Summer Break, whatever, Ice Cream Lilica. Characters like her, they were really useful and strong in the meta, and they were good cleansers, but they're just not good at dealing with a ton of debuffs. And I think we need more cleansers that actually punish these debuffs. The new Acades was supposed to kind of do that, where you turn the debuffs into buffs, but she herself just gets stunned by stuff or debuffed. So it's like, well, that doesn't really work. You have to build 300-something FRES, and then she dies from like one hit, or she's not fast enough. It's just impossible to build the stats you actually need. So I think that's one of the big things that they really need to change. I want to make a whole extra video talking about nerfs and stuff like that, or changes to those kind of things in the future as well, because I think there's a whole slew of problems with that. But essentially, just going from season to season, I would like to see a lot of changes with the Frenzy system, with FRES. I think it's kind of an outdated system. I think the new buffs that are coming might shake things up a little bit. Maybe ML Landy will be a little bit easier to deal with some like ML Ken possibly. Maybe K-Ron's going to introduce some cool stuff, ML K-Ron. And what I will say is I sure hope Moon Bunny actually does something against this ML Lilias, but I guess we'll see what happens. But all in all, I just think that this was probably my least favorite season ever. And I cross my fingers that I don't say the same about the next season. But I really think that this season hit home, especially for me, maybe more than other people. I just think that it became so boring and one note with the ML Landy and Zio teams. And I think that the fact that debuffs felt so wildly overpowered, so it felt like a partial control meta in a way too, just made it so frustrating that other metas I can't really think of just being as frustrating to deal with as just constant debuffs and basically two prevalent teams really existing in the meta. And I really hope that we see some changes. All in all, I still love E7, even if the game pisses me off more than anything else. But I just really hope that we can see some nice changes in the near future that'll hopefully make it a little bit more interesting for everybody. I think we can all attest to that. Whether or not you really like this season, I think we can all acknowledge that there can always be improvements and things that make it a little more fun for everybody. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you next time.